I've been trying to get down to Cahokia for a while now. It's about 30 minutes east of St. Louis, and every time I try to get down there, it's tornadoes or 90-mile-an-hour winds or something like that. The weather this summer has been absolutely crazy in my neck of the woods, so travel's been a little bit difficult. I'm sure it's been beautiful down there, but I didn't want to leave everybody here with all the crazy storms coming by themselves, so I stayed my butt here and I continued to do my research. And here's what I found so far. About 30 minutes east of St. Louis, there's a hill that someone built by hand, over 22 million cubic feet of earth, moved in baskets one load at a time, by people with no metal tools, no wheels, and no horses or oxen to help carry anything. It covers 14 acres at its base, and it's roughly the same footprint as the Great Pyramid of Giza. Most people that drive past it see this huge mound, but they don't really know exactly what they're looking at. It's the centerpiece of what was once the largest city in North America, a city called Cahokia, that at its peak around 1100 AD had somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 people in the urban core, and a regional population exceeding 50,000. And Paris at that time had around 20 to 25,000 people, as one of the largest cities in Europe. And Cahokia was in that range, and nothing on the North American continent can come close to that again for another 600 years, not until Philadelphia in the 1770s. The size alone is remarkable, but the speed in which the city was built is just insane. Around 1050 AD, the area had small farming villages, and within what archaeologists describe as essentially a single generation, a fully realized city existed. The central mound was built, neighborhoods organized, plazas laid out, thousands of people living in a structured urban environment. The trade network connecting the city to the Gulf of Mexico, the Great Lakes, and the Atlantic coast was already running. Nobody knows who made the decision to do all that, or why or where the knowledge came from, to pull off all of that in a short amount of time. By 1350 AD, the city was empty. When French explorers reached the area around 1700, they found overgrown mounds and nothing else. What's interesting is that every tribe that lived within range of a city of 50,000 people for 2.5 centuries, the Osage, the Omaha, the Ponca, the Quapaw, none of them kept any history about it. There was no legends and no memories stored, and the city was the size of medieval Paris, on the Mississippi River, and the people who were neighbors to it for centuries left no record that it ever existed. The Great Central Mound, called Monk's Mound now, had a massive wooden building at its summit. Standing on top of it, you were 100 feet above the floodplain, literally above the clouds that formed at lower elevations over the river. Whoever held authority in Cahokia was positioned physically between the ground and the sky, and the architecture made that visible for miles in every direction. Just to the west, the archaeologists found a series of timber circles, large wooden posts set into the ground in arrangements aligned to the sunrise on the solstices and equinoxes. They call it Woodhenge now, a solar calendar encoding the same astronomical knowledge that produced Stonehenge and Newgrange. The whole city's layout followed these celestial alignments, the main axis running precisely north and south. The plazas positioned to frame specific points on the horizon where the sun rose and set at the moments that mattered most for planting and ceremony. Surrounding Monk's Mound were hundreds of smaller mounds, platforms for temples and residences, burial mounds, ceremonial mounds. Between them, there's neighborhoods of residences arranged around the plazas, markets, workshops producing copper ornaments, shell jewelry, pottery, and stone tools, shells from the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic, copper from the Great Lakes, stone from quarries hundreds of miles away. The city was pulling materials from the entire continent. In 1967, archaeologists working on a mound just south of Monk's Mound opened up something that changed the way that people look at this city. The mound contained at least 270 burials, and what was found in there tells a clear story about power. Some people were buried with extraordinary amounts of wealth, tens of thousands of shell beads, copper ornaments, arrowheads made from stone that could only have come from far away. And one burial that they uncovered caught them a little bit off guard. A man laid on a bed of more than 20,000 shell beads arranged in the shape of a falcon or a thunderbird. That was the symbol of supreme authority. Whatever that person's role was, nothing in Cahokia says more clearly that someone was at the very top and there was a ruler of some sort. In the same mound were 4 mass graves of mostly young women, some showing signs of being sacrificed in groups and placed there together. Researchers looked at the chemical signatures in their teeth, a technique that traces where the person grew up based on the geology of the water and the food that they eat. And they found that while most of them were from the local area, there was many of them that came from somewhere else entirely. So there was groups of young women buried together in mass graves at the center of the city's most important ceremonial site. And the most accepted explanation for that is sacrifice, offerings made at a political or religiously significant moment. What those graves show alongside everything else is that this was a civilization with an extremely specific belief system about what Cahokia was and what it was for. The mounds, the astronomical layout, the trade network, the mass sacrifices, all of it displays a people who believed the city itself was sacred and what happened there had consequences beyond the physical world. There's something that doesn't get talked about a ton when Cahokia comes up, and it's that the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the U.S. government satellite surveillance organization that produces imagery for the military operations, partnered with St. Louis University to scan the site using military-grade LiDAR technology. It shoots laser pulses through the tree canopies and finds what's underneath, finding buried structures that we probably wouldn't have ever uncovered without this technology. They found that the city was larger than the visible mounds suggest. Structures hidden under centuries of growth that nobody knew were there. A 2019 analysis of lake sediment from Horseshoe Lake right next to the site added something to the picture. The sediment record shows a massive erosion event starting right around 1050 AD. This is what you would expect from large amounts of land being cleared fast for construction and farming all at the same time. That means the city went up fast enough to leave one geological signature rather than a gradual buildup. The decline of Cahokia probably had a lot of contributing causes. Too many trees cleared, the floodplain overfarmed past what it could sustain, a prolonged drought in the 13th century that put pressure on the whole system, political distress, the authority structure that could organize tens of thousands of people to build Monk's Mound eventually couldn't hold things together anymore. A defensive wall built around the central area late in the city's history, which tells you things had gotten a little bit dangerous. A fire that destroyed a major part of the city across the river in East St. Louis. All of that over the course of a century is probably enough to empty a city, but what it doesn't explain is why no one remembers it or has documented or talks about it. Timothy Paukatzat at the University of Illinois, and I apologize if I'm butchering that name, but he spent his career studying Cahokia. And funny enough, my son is a history major at the University of Illinois, and he was able to get in there on the honors track and able to study in Prague and has had an awesome experience there. He graduated this year and he is going back to finish his master's in the fall. And one of the things that actually got me started on this journey was his love for history. Anyway, the silence of the surrounding cultures isn't what normal decline looks like. These oral traditions preserve detailed accounts of events going back centuries. The complete absence of any story about Cahokia from every culture that lived within range of it for 2.5 centuries tells you something about how it ended. Something that made the people who survived choose not to talk about it, or made talking about it dangerous. Or meant that whatever they took with them was deliberately cut off from any connection to where it came from. I'm going to be there soon, and I'm going to try to reach out to a few of these researchers that know it best, and when that happens, I'll be sure to bring all that back to you all. The reason this place matters in the context of what this channel covers is a massive city with no clear predecessor, encoding astronomical knowledge that matches what shows up in Egypt and Ireland and England, running a trade network spanning a continent, operating what appears to be an intense cosmological belief system, and disappearing so completely that no surrounding culture kept any story about it. That's an unsolved puzzle, and that's kind of the thing that keeps me ticking. A city the size of medieval Paris appeared almost overnight on the Mississippi River, encoded astronomical knowledge into its layout, had mass ritual sacrifices at its center, and disappeared so completely that no surrounding culture kept any memory of it. What do you think happened there, and what do you think they knew that stopped them from preserving and documenting the history of this place? I can't wait to get down there, but we have had a record number of tornadoes and crazy-ass weather this year, so I just don't want to leave everybody abandoned while I'm down there enjoying myself, and they're all struggling down here with in the basement hiding from storms. So once I see a nice window, I'm going to get down there and do some digging. Not literally, because I think that's illegal, but I'm going to walk around and do some documenting and some filming and see what we can come up with. This is just a little bit of a background for why I think that place is interesting and why I'm making the trip down there, and hopefully I'm able to talk to some of these people that are researching this for a living and get some of their insight on this as well. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, like, and leave that comment. I would love to hear your thoughts about what you think is going on there, or what do you think happened there that caused people to not document it or preserve any memories of it. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.